Hello and welcome to another edition of What Does the Giraffe Say with me, Kathleen Retourne. We're a service that aims to reconnect people with conservation efforts around the world by holding live interviews on social media. Today, I am very happy to be joined by John Burton, and he is the chairman for Matobo Rhino Trust. So John, if I could just hand over to you and if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how the trust began life.
Yeah, Kath, thanks very much for inviting me to this interview. The Matobo Rhino Trust really appreciates it. So my name is John Burton. I was born in Zimbabwe, went to school in Bulawayo, the huge city of Bulawayo, and got a diploma in hotel management and tourism. After that, went to work in several hotels and lodges around Zimbabwe, and then in 1990 started my own safari business, and since then I've built and owned 3 lodges in different places in Zimbabwe, and that brings me more or less to where I am today.
And then why did you feel like there was a need to start the trust?
Well, the lodge that we have in the Matopos is next to the Matopos National Park, and people come here to go into the national park. There are a couple of features of the national park, but one of them is the wildlife, which is primarily the rhino. And the rhino, between 2000 and 2012, went through an extremely difficult time. And it wasn't me alone. It was a group of people that thought they needed something to be done to make sure that the rhinos were protected.
Okay, and then having done a bit of research into you guys, I noticed that you've got several different kind of ways of trying to approach this problem. When it comes to more like the anti-poaching side, I know you have an anti-poaching unit. And then you also have things that like confinement of the rhinos so that you know where they are. Can you tell us a little bit about these, how they started and what the challenges are here?
Yes, so the Matobo Rhino Trust work with the national parks of Zimbabwe. That's a key issue. The national parks of Zimbabwe are the ones responsible for the national park. The Matobo Rhino Trust is there purely to assist, and our focus is on the rhino. And at our meetings with national parks, we came up with 5 key areas of focus, which are anti-poaching, confinement, dehorning community, and rhino tourism. So those are the 5 areas that we focus on. Some areas, like for example, the anti-poaching is predominantly in national parks. Those are the guys that organize the anti-poaching units, because they're all armed and that type of thing. But we assist with things like equipment and that type of thing to make sure that the anti-poaching units are out there 24/7.
And then how do you raise the funds then to help support this? Because I imagine putting a fence up will be extremely costly, and also helping to assist with the anti-poachers is also another cost for this as well.
Yeah, so the other issue that you brought up was confinement. That's one of our key areas. So we've fenced off very vulnerable areas in the national parks, primarily to stop the rhino and other wildlife moving out of the national parks, because once the rhino move out of the national park, then they're very difficult to protect. So our one project was a 52-kilometer fence around an area called the Hove. That cost us about $180,000 US. And what we did is we just went out and asked people, and people are very supportive. So we got international donors, some of them organizations, some individuals. We got some local donors, and we put the money together and we built the fence around that particular area. Yeah.
And then another part of it was dehorning of the rhinos. Can you tell us about this process and why there's the need to do it, and if it's seen a big change in the poaching?
Yeah. Okay. So as I said, we focus on these 5 key areas. You can't, well, in our opinion, you can't stop the rhino poaching if you just focus on one area. You need a combination of all 5. So one of them is dehorning. The dehorning operations are actually run by an organization called the Matobo Trust, which is also a Zimbabwean organization. But we're very supportive because we see that as a key function in the overall protection of the rhino. So the rhino dehorning project takes place every year. All the rhino in the Matopos have now been dehorned, and we have both black and white rhinos. So they come with a helicopter. They find the rhino, they dart them from the air, then they land, and a vet cuts the horn off, and then they give them the antidote, and the rhinos get up and off they go. And it's absolutely key, we feel. Other organizations don't think that that's possibly the number one thing, but we think that dehorning is absolutely key. And it's basically a risk to reward situation. So the Matopos National Park is designated an IPZ, an intensive protection zone. If it's designated an IPZ by the Zimbabwean government, that means that they have a shoot to kill policy. So anyone who is entering the park to poach or suspected as a poaching can be shot on sight. So you have a situation where the rhino horn is extremely valuable. So people are prepared to take high risk because it's high reward. So if you cut the horn off, they can still come in and shoot, and the horn can't be cut right down to the bone. So there is still a bit of horn left, but it means that you're risking your life for a lot less reward. And that has been a key factor in influencing the poaching in the Matopos.
And then does it have any impact on the rhinos themselves? Like once they've been dehorned, does it impact their quality of life?
Well, from my point of view, it's essential that you dehorn all of them. The horn is a defensive mechanism, but it's also used for territorial fighting. So if you dehorn some of the rhino and not the others, when they get into territorial fights, there's a strong likelihood that rhino are going to get killed. Obviously, the one with the horn is going to be in a better advantage than the one without. Yeah,
sure. And then touching on the final 2 parts of your programs, you also have your community program, which kind of ties in alongside your tourism program. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Have you started to see a change in attitude towards the community, towards rhinos from the community, and how are they benefiting from this?
Yeah, so we see the community as a key area, and surrounding the Matopos National Parks are communal areas where the local people live. And they sort of act as an extra protective layer. So it's important that we have them on board. So what we've done is we've created rhino community centers at the entrances to the national park, which are basically wooden thatch structures that are work as interpretation centers that give visitors information about the national parks, the rhino, and other things that happen within the national park. And then if visitors feel that they want to contribute to the rhino effort, we have these small cooking pots that are cemented into the interpretation centers, and they put donations in there. Then every month, the communities, the elders from the communities, they meet with us and national parks, and we open up the pots. We take the money, it's all recorded, and then the community use that money for things like clinic supplies or buying desks for the schools or boreholes or whatever. So it's worked extremely well, because the basic story when we go to clear the pots is we say, if we have the rhino, the tourists come and you benefit from some funding. No rhino, no tourist, no money. That's basically it. I mean, that's quite harsh, but that's very clearly understood. So what you have is you have a very large community living outside of the park that see the rhino as absolutely crucial to them, and they add, as I said, an extra layer of protection.
And then was it important then that you had the backing from the elders when you were going into doing these projects?
Yes, in fact, it really spurred them on. We built these rhino community centers, and we got going, and they were coming in, they were clearing out the pots. And you must understand, these people live in very difficult, particularly economic situations. So that money became absolutely crucial to them. And as a result of that, they formed their own trust called the Khumalo Community Trust. And the money that they get from the donation pots goes into the Khumalo Community Trust, and then they discuss amongst themselves how the money is going to be spent. So that's additional funding that comes from the rhino, really. But it's not funding that we get donation for the projects that we're doing. That's purely something that the community see as income generated from rhino, and not only rhino, other wildlife that's in the national park. So their Khumalo Community Trust is working well, and they extremely enthusiastic about the whole thing.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, it is so vital for the community to have backing in any kind of conservation efforts, and also a bit of ownership as well for the efforts to succeed.
Yeah, no, 100%, yeah.
And also kind of tying in with making sure that you're having good relationships and things like that. You recently signed an MOU with Zimbabwe National Parks. Can you tell us a little bit about what this MOU means and how important it is to have the support from government bodies?
Yeah, okay, so Zimbabwe National Parks control all the national parks in the country. They have a lot of organizations and individuals that try and assist with various projects, but some of them have got sort of ulterior motives. So the Director General of National Parks decided to make it all a little bit more formal and a bit more structured. So he said anyone working in conjunction with national parks must have a memorandum of understanding. So as an organization, you submit a proposal, they go through it, you go through the system, and then basically the Director General signs it. And that gives you a formal document with guidelines of how you're going to work with national parks. And that is an extremely positive thing, because national parks know what you're supposed to be doing, and you know what you're supposed to be doing with national parks. So it works very well. So we are now, we have been for some time a formally registered organization with Zimbabwe, and now we have a memorandum of understanding with Zimbabwe National Parks. So we're all good to go, basically. Yeah.
That's great news. Yeah, at least that way, that means there's no confusion and everyone kind of knows exactly what they should be doing. What would you say is the general attitude towards wildlife and conservation in Zimbabwe? Is it something that people are very aware of? Is it something that needs a lot more education on?
No, Zimbabwe is a very special place, and they do try their utmost to look after the wildlife. They realize the value of the wildlife, and they do their best to look after it. But it's done under fairly trying conditions. So that's why we, as our fifth key area of focus, rhino tourism is what we consider a key factor in rhino protection. So we try to look after the rhino, to save the rhino, but also we have the idea behind it is that hopefully people will come to visit the rhino, because we have a very special way of doing it, and you're allowed out of the vehicle and we track the rhino on foot. So we hope visitors come. Obviously, by them coming, money is brought from outside of Zimbabwe, foreign currency is brought from outside of Zimbabwe. And from that, there are multiple benefits. So the lodges keep operating, and the lodges employ the local people. The lodges buy all their groceries and building materials from the local town, so the local economy benefits. And so it has a very positive impact on everything. But at the same time, protecting the rhino. And we feel that if the rhino have got value because they're bringing in tourists, then it's more likely that they're going to be protected. So that's the sort of plan we work on.
Yeah, no, it's a really good plan. And then going kind of feeding from that, when you're talking about tourism and how important that is, how then has the impact of COVID had an impact on what your work is doing? Has there been an increase in poaching, for example, for bushmeat? Because I know obviously a lot of people are losing jobs. It's a really difficult time. How do you kind of keep going in these current conditions?
Well, the foreign tourism basically in Zimbabwe has stopped. So that's affected us economically very badly. But the national parks have been really, really good. They've continued with their work. Us as the Matobo Rhino Trust have continued with whatever projects we could manage. So although there has been a lot of pressure on the wildlife, from a wildlife protection point of view, life goes on as normal. So there has been a lot of increased pressure, I must admit, but the rhino and the other wildlife, and I must say that that's also key, because by protecting the rhino, you almost automatically protect everything else. And we've had the incidents of things like pangolin poaching or leopards getting caught in traps and that type of thing. But by having the system with the rhino, it also spills over to protect those other animals. So although COVID has been extremely bad for tourism, from a wildlife perspective, the national parks of Zimbabwe have kept up doing a really good job.
That's so good to hear. Am I right in thinking as well that Zimbabwe is looking to start opening up a little bit more now as well?
Yeah, no, there's indications they've starting to allow some of the flights. I think the border posts, which are also key, are likely to be open fairly shortly. And the sooner we can get the tourists back, the better, because the country relies on tourism to a big extent.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll start seeing more people coming over. I've been very lucky that I've spent some time in Zimbabwe, and I know what an incredibly beautiful country it is, with some incredible people. So it's definitely one for people's bucket list if you're watching back home. Okay, so I've only got one more question left, but also if you're watching back home and you'd like to put a question towards John, then just pop it in the comments section and I'll have a look at that and put it towards him. If you're watching this and it's later and it's not live, do still put your comments in and we'll be able to have a look and respond to your questions. And obviously feel free to support by sharing, liking and trying to spread this message as far as we can. So John, obviously you've been working in the industry for a long time. What would you say would be your favourite success story?
Well, this thing with the Matobo Rhino Trust is a real passion of ours, and basically between 2000 and 2012, the rhino went under a very difficult time. There was a large amount of poaching, and that's basically why the Matobo Rhino Trust has been formed. So I think in 2012, which was the year before that we got involved, they lost about 12 rhino to poaching. But between 2013 is when we started, and to date, we've only lost three rhino. So that for us is very, very encouraging, and we want to build on that and make things better, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible success story. We got someone back home and they're asking what they could do if, now that things are hopefully starting to open up, what's the process then for them to kind of come and stay and see the rhinos?
Yeah, well, we want as many tourists to Zimbabwe as we can get. So Zimbabwe is an incredibly beautiful country, and it's quite diverse. So when you come to Zimbabwe, you can go to things like Great Zimbabwe Ruins, which is a fantastic ancient city. You can come to Matopo to see the rhino. You can go to Wangi National Park to see the elephants and lions, and then you can go to Victoria Falls. So it offers a broad range of different things that you can do. And there's different ways you can do it. You can either just do it as individually and even travel around by yourselves, or you can go with various tour companies that offer tour group travel through Zimbabwe. You just need to research it and decide what suits you best. But Zimbabwe is a really beautiful place, very natural. And I think the key factor is the people, extremely friendly. We have a lot of problems with things like inflation and unemployment and that sort of thing, which normally pushes people to a certain point. But even with that, because the people are so peaceful here, the crime in Zimbabwe is almost non-existent, even though they're living under such pressure. So people are extremely welcome. We want tourists, and we think that they will really enjoy themselves if they come here.
For sure, yeah. As I say, if anyone goes, they're in for an absolute treat. Okay, so most of the other comments we've got are just saying that you're doing a great job and that they've been really enjoying this discussion. So I'll wrap up now. So John, is there anything you'd like to finish with?
No, I just sort of want to reiterate again that please, if people are considering a holiday, to maybe put Zimbabwe on the list, because tourism definitely has multiple benefits, and one of the benefits is actually saving black and white rhino, which are obviously endangered species. So by coming on holiday, you not only come to enjoy yourselves, but you make an impact on local people's lives and support the wildlife of the country, which is crucial.
Excellent. I've actually just had one question pop through, and they're asking, does the Rhino Trust only focus on rhino? As the safari is something that is very important to Zimbabwean tourism, is there something being done about elephants as well, seen as the statistics mainly are focused on rhino poaching?
Yes, there's different organizations that deal with different wildlife. So here in the Matopus, primarily because of the cave painting. So the Matopus is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, primarily because of the cave paintings. There's a large number and extremely elaborate cave paintings here, and that's why it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So people do a lot of walking in the Matopus to go and see the cave paintings. So as a result of that, many years ago, national parks decided that this wasn't a good place for elephants. So we don't have any elephants here, and that's why we focus on the rhino. But as I say, by looking after the rhino, there are spillover benefits to look after things like pangolin, leopards, giraffes, everything else that we've got here. If you go to Wangi National Park, there's thousands of elephants there. There are organizations in Wangi National Park that are very active in looking after the elephants. And I would say that the elephants in Wangi National Park are well looked after. Their numbers are increasing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's a lot of different organizations with different focuses spread throughout the country, all kind of trying to do their bit to help with conservation. Okay then, John, well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and tell us about the work that you're doing. It's been super interesting, and I hope that other people back home have enjoyed it as well. As I say, if you are watching this a bit later, do feel free to keep commenting, liking, sharing everything we do to help kind of spread the message and help conservation efforts around the world. But for me, thank you very much for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your day.
Ciao, thanks.